Hey guys, tonight we slip behind sliding doors that never quite close, where the scent of pine smoke curls in the air, and someone always seems to be watching through painted silk screens. This is not the Japan of cherry blossoms and noble poems. It's the one buried beneath imperial titles and ritual silence. The one where power is a smile that lingers too long, and mercy is a forgotten formality. You're about to meet an emperor, but not the kind who rules. This one's a boy. Too polite for war, too honest for court, too hungry to last. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And comment your location and local time, especially if you're listening beneath moonlight. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first thing you notice is the quiet, not the comfortable kind. The kind that follows orders. The kind woven into the tatami floors, stitched into every sleeve of his attendants, padded carefully into his sandals. You're in the palace, now the Kyoto court, at the edge of its golden age. The emperor is 5, then 7, then 9. His face changes only slightly, like a watercolor faded by too much sunlight. Every year he bows deeper, speaks less, eats more, slowly. He learns how to be unseen while watched. You walk beside him. As he's led through chambers filled with incense and protocol, servants lower their eyes. Courtiers murmur poems about fate and duty, always in metaphors, never in names. Here's your historical fact. By the 12th century, Japan's emperors had become figureheads. Real power belonged to the shogunate, to the generals and clans who moved armies like chess pieces. The emperor wore crowns, but not swords. He signed scrolls written by others. His throne was made of lacquered wood, but he sat on it like it was glass. One of his favorite pastimes is watching the cranes. In the quiet garden behind the southern wing, they land without ceremony. They do not bow. They do not speak in riddles. He likes that about them. Here's your strange tidbit. One court record mentions that this particular emperor once asked why he was not allowed to eat a whole peach. The question was not answered, but peaches disappeared from the palace. For 7 months afterward, scholars still debate whether he was truly exiled or simply relocated. But the moon knows what happened. The table is set with all the care of a ritual. Lacquer bowls arranged like stars, pickled plums, salted rice, slices of lotus root carved to look like snowflakes. You sit across from him as he lifts his chopsticks with perfect form. No one speaks. Silence is a form of seasoning here. It's the last banquet before his departure, though no one calls it that. The court says things like a retreat for the spirit, or temporary isolation to reflect on divine purpose. But the child emperor is smart enough to read between the dishes. He knows farewells when he tastes them. Here's your historical fact. Emperors in feudal Japan were occasionally removed under the guise of religious withdrawal. Often, it was political conflicts between factions, or an heir viewed as too aligned with the wrong clan. The court never used the word banishment, but exile, wore many robes. He bites into a chestnut, his eyes flicker, too soft, overcooked, or perhaps something else. The attendant's hand trembles as he pours the tea. You watch the boy glance toward the eastern door, the one they never open anymore, the one that used to lead to his mother's quarters until her name was erased from all surviving records. Here's a fringe detail. One 14th century diary claims that a hidden emperor once asked why the bells no longer rang at dusk. Number 2 record shows when they stopped, or who silenced them. That as he eats, he places one tiny folded crane beside his plate. A habit. He's made over 100 now. His sleeves hide the ink, smudges on his wrists from tracing the creases to hard. The head? Priest enters. The boy bows. Too deeply. His forehead touches the mat. No one meets his eyes when he rises. The crane flutters. Just a little from the draft, but the windows are shut. It slips through the rice paper screens of the palanquin. It dances across the lacquered ceiling of the boat as he's ferried away from the capital, glimmering in his untouched reflection. You're beside him, as the trees grow thinner, The air colder, the silence louder. The guards say little. The priest, even less. The temple isn't far, but the journey is long. Emotion stretches time like wet cloth. Here's your historical fact. Many exiled royals were sent to remote monastic retreats, places designed not for punishment, but for forgetting. Some never returned. Others were kept technically alive, yet politically non-existent, no longer sovereign, no longer dangerous. The emperor is shown to a small room with wooden beams and a futon stuffed with rice. Straw, there's no pillow, just folded cloth, a thin blanket, 2 candles. No mirror, he is told to rest, he doesn't. The night sounds like wind, through bamboo, but there is no bamboo outside. Here's your odd tidbit. In old temple traditions, voices of ex-emperors were considered too sacred to be spoken to directly. Monks often addressed them through intermediary servants or not at all. Some believed even hearing their names could bring karmic confusion. So he is called the honored one, but never by name. Not even when he asks, "What day is it?" No one answers. He begins to feel hunger, not in the stomach, but behind the eyes. A floaty dry ache that creeps across the skull like frost. In the garden. The pines rustle, a crane lands. Once and does not fly away. Word count, 568 section for the ink freezes on the brush. It's the 3rd letter today. Each shorter than the last. His handwriting has shrunk to a small flickering script. Like the flame beside him, thinning by the hour. You watch him fold the page carefully once, then twice. He places it in the wooden tray beside the doorway. The monk will take it, he always says that, but the tray never empties. Here's your historical fact. During periods of political instability, messages from deposed emperors were often intercepted or destroyed outright. A silent policy, never written, just enforced. To prevent unrest. To preserve stability. He begins writing to the wind instead. Short phrases whispered toward the rafters. If you still remember me, say my name aloud. If you still remember me, send peaches. If you still remember me, breathe slower tonight. Here's a fringe detail. Some say paper cranes found in imperial graves were originally messages, folded thousands of times. Wishes the dead never stopped writing. The emperor folds them now out of scraps, pages from sutras, old bills of offerings, even temple receipts. He hides them beneath the floor mat. Not for discovery, but because some part of him believes the paper can carry meaning where people cannot. He dreams of bells. He dreams of a room so full of silence that it begins to ring. And in that ringing, he hears his own name. Just once, before the wind changes, the monks still chant, still sweep, still bring the same thin soup, but the bowl now rests beside him untouched. The wax from the candle has spilled into the ink tray. He doesn't notice. You're here, as the final bell tolls a soft echo through the rafters. Not from ritual, but from footsteps. A young monk enters. He's new. Too new to know the rules. Too new to fear the stories whispered behind shut doors. He kneels beside the unmoving form. Reaches to check for breath. There is none. Here's your fact. Some imperial exiles died in temple rooms so quietly that their death was not officially recorded for days. The emperor's last breath may have passed, not in suffering, but in stillness. The kind that folds perfectly into the room, like one last crane. The monk finds the letters. He finds the cranes. He doesn't speak, just gathers them into his robe, and slips away into the garden. And here's your debate. No record names, which emperor this truly was. Some say it was Gotama. Others insist it was a forgotten prince, deliberately erased, a decoy, a mistake made too late to correct. But someone once whispered his name beneath the stars. And if you listen closely, on certain moonlit nights in the old temple grounds, the pine boughs still rustle as though something is Then twice, into silence. Word count, 566 Windownend. Now, the ink has dried. The brush rests, its bristles bent like old grass. The futon lies undisturbed, and the wind through the temple rafters has softened to something almost kind. You've walked with him through cedar. Corridors and paper screen dreams. You've tasted the thin broth of exile, and folded the silence into 1,000 tiny shapes. Let that stillness stay with you now. No one's watching anymore. The court has moved on. The names have been changed. The bells have stopped ringing. But the story remains quietly beneath the dust, like a breath caught between candlelight and sleep. Let yourself drift, as he did, one breath at a time. Not fearful, just slow. Like dusk over Tata. Am I like moonlight on still ink? You are safe here, sleep. Well, Emperor, and the boy never watched the cranes